I'm not sure that many people have truly grasped how small the starting price iPhone 12 is. At a 5.4-inch display, it's pretty dang close to the old iPhone 8 Plus design, so a lot of people still saw that as a large OLED display. But now that these dummy models are coming out, we can finally continue to talk about the fact that this is the smallest iPhone Apple has released in years. Let's begin. It's true, the iPhone SE is not the smallest phone Apple is releasing this year, and I can imagine why a lot of people are excited for that, because we are still getting iOS 14 updates, on the original iPhone SE with its old squared-off design, which is about to look very, very familiar, but a lot of people have been resistant to change, and not that big a fan of having to buy bigger and bigger phones. They're comfortable with having a more compact design that can fit in their pocket easier, doesn't have to weigh a lot, and very much feel neglected by a lot of Android OEMs this time of year, because it seems like every single Android phone is focusing on making a bigger and bigger and bigger phone, larger display, whether it's curved off the back or big battery pack. They just want to have the best, and they just want to have the largest phone they can get their hands on. But I still think there's a very large and neglected demographic out there that wants phones that are compact and easy to hold, and you can reach every single part of the display with one finger, and you don't need one-handed mode or reachability of any kind. And the fact that they're finally making a device actually smaller than the iPhone 6 and the 7 and the 8 and the SE, of course, means that this is the smallest iPhone Apple has built essentially since 2016. And that's kind of a cheat because it was a recycled design of the iPhone 5 and 5S. So in actuality, it's kind of close to the smallest new iPhone design we've ever had in like 7 years, if you consider the iPhone 5S was when Apple was still using that small footprint as their like flagship design. Now, Apple is still going to be catering to that demographic, and the nice thing about it is they're not compromising on too much. Sadly, it wasn't possible for Apple to incorporate all of the cool Pro features we'll be getting in the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max into a footprint of that extreme compactness, but we'll still be getting some pretty awesome specs like the A14 chip, the 5G modems. You'll still be getting a dual camera, so ultra wide and regular, which of course means night mode, portrait mode. And now, for the first time on a much, much cheaper model, we'll be getting an OLED display on a 5.4-inch design, which screen-wise, honestly, not terribly much smaller than the iPhone 10, at that 5.8-inch display, but I think the form factor is really going to shock people this year because that squared-off design should allow for much thinner bezels than we currently have on our curved-off iPhones, and I think the most interesting thing about the 5.4-inch iPhone is it's our best bet at the notch shrinking this year. So leaks and rumors flip-flop on this all the time, and they're still not sure whether or not the notch is shrinking. Most likely it is, but not by a lot. So if any of them end up being true, it makes the most amount of sense for Apple to incorporate a smaller notch on the 5.4-inch iPhone, because the current size notch will not fit very easily on a display that small. So to me, the existence of that 5.4-inch iPhone is proof that, hey, maybe Apple figured out a way to minimize the Face ID sensors in a way that can be more and more compact. And honestly, I think the starting price is probably going to be one of the coolest features of that base model iPhone 12. In fact, it might convince a lot of people that they might want to go ahead and start living with a smaller iPhone again, because a lot of us have just kind of been forced to get the bigger iPhone. Sometimes we had to get the bigger one because it had the better camera. And that might be the case again this year, but the fact that you'll be able to get still really great computational photography, insane video performance. In fact, A14 chip might be so fast that we're able to get 4K at 120 FPS or 4K at 240 FPS on a phone that is smaller than the iPhone SE that just launched, while still getting gesture control, while still getting Face ID and all that kind of thing. So because the starting price is rumored to be potentially under $700 for a flagship with such insane specs, perhaps that smaller iPhone could be more popular than we're expecting. In previous videos, I've talked about why I think the 6.1-inch iPhone is going to be just the right amount of everything for everyone because it's bigger and people like big screens like that. But I think the price point of that entry-level iPhone will be really, really tempting to people that they might be willing to settle with a bit of a smaller iPhone than they're used to. As long as they get the great camera, the awesome display, the updated design, they're able to get that at $650, and then once you factor in the iPhone trade-in program and everything, this thing's going to be a steal, and it could end up being much more popular than a lot of us are anticipating right now. The biggest concern I have with this iPhone is, of course, battery life, because when you make an iPhone that small, it's very difficult to pack a large battery pack in there. So I'm really, really hoping that the A14 chip has some power efficiency tricks up its sleeve, and it's able to run on incredibly low amounts of power. That way you can still get flagship-like battery life, like the same battery as the iPhone 11, but in a much smaller footprint. I'm not sure if they can make that work work, but probably the biggest drawback if any of you are considering getting this smaller iPhone and upgrading from maybe the last small iPhone you could get your hands on, like the first generation iPhone SE, or I still know some people that were rocking an iPhone 5S, so maybe now's a good time to upgrade, particularly if you were looking forward to a smaller iPhone coming out eventually. This is the year, 2020, that's the one to make it happen. So let me know what you guys think of the smallest iPhone in years by hitting me up over on Twitter. Join my Discord, we can chat more about it there. This is your Apple Shape here. I'll see you in the next one.